The Miami Dolphins are guaranteed 2 more games at least this season, and with some injuries mounting on each side of the ball, a look today at how the Dolphins should look to adjust their focus as they try to maximize the opportunity that lies ahead of them.
You are Locked On Dolphins, your daily Miami Dolphins podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right. Miami, welcome to another episode of Locked On Dolphins. It's your team every day. Here on the Locked On Network, I'm your host, Kyle Krabs, a lifelong Miami Dolphins fan, host of Locked On Dolphins, co-host of Locked On NFL Scouting. Find our shows on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Tip of the cap to our everydayers, because it is your team every day here on the Locked On Network. Today's episode of Locked On Dolphins is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. We are looking at what the Dolphins have because there's a lot in which they don't. That they, certainly when this team was assembled, this team envisioned that they would have for this time of year. It's 2024. It's the first time I'm recording a show in 2024 because I technically recorded the Monday show in the post-game aftermath of what happened in the Mid-Atlantic, and we'll leave it at that. Miami kind of reeling from a health and durability standpoint when you consider so many pillars and cornerstones of this roster are now either fringe available for this week, fringe available for the playoffs, or not available in its entirety. And every team in the league is dealing with injuries. It's a part of the game. It's an unfortunate part of the game. I think you can certainly look at the perspective of losing Bradley Chubb specifically, which I think is the big black cloud that hangs over the Dolphins defense right now. And Mike McDaniel detailed a little bit on Monday that the offense had just taken starters out in really unfortunate circumstances. And the offense had a one-play turnover with a fumble when they were getting ready to start to have those conversations about defense, and they had a sudden change, and the defense has to go back out there. Yeah, that's makes you wonder what the football gods, the grind is that they have, the axe they have to grind against Miami for that unfortunate of a break for that player of that magnitude. But it's the hand that the Dolphins have been dealt, and we have to talk a little bit about where they go from here. So we'll talk about the mentality on first down, right? It's every possession, it's scoring opportunity. This is a Locked On Dolphins scoring opportunity. You got first down, second down, third down. We're going to start first and goal here on Locked On Dolphins by focusing on the mentality of the Miami Dolphins in general and how it should change moving forward. So, as I reflect on what the Dolphins have done this season, they aren't like a tempo play clock team, but they do feel like a fast break team at times where they get momentum and then they like to get really aggressive once they hit you with a big drive starter or a haymaker offensively. But if you consider no Raheem Mostert, no Jaylen Waddle, or at least last week, we'll see what their status is this week. I think this is a little bit more of a methodical type approach, or it should be a bit more of a methodical type approach. And I think the thing that's intriguing about this, but also frustrating about this, is the Dolphins in a lot of their 2-minute offense situations have shown the ability to just take completions as they're given. And then Tua Tagovailoa comes out and says, the second interception that was thrown against Baltimore was him needing to take the completion underneath. And I think as you play teams from here on out, kind of this really slasher style, aggressive offense, fast break offense, I just don't know that it's, if you don't have Waddle and Mostert and Robert Hunt doesn't come back, it just doesn't necessarily feel to me like it's in the best interest of the personnel that you have out there. Case in point, when Jaylen Waddle didn't play, the skill player who got the biggest bump was Cedric Wilson. The player who got the most influx in targets and yardage in the passing game was Durham Smythe. Those are not players that you associate with chunk gains and being explosive playmakers, right? They're a little bit more bigger bodied, physical. You can be methodical. They can win in traffic for you, but they can also create a little bit after the catch. They have a little bit bigger catch radius. I'd like to see the Dolphins, if they have to continue to play with some of these guys in bigger spots, kind of adopt what their body types and skill sets bring to the table. And it's not just how they approach the passing game. I think just the mentality of the team in general. I will say, whether it was Mike McDaniel or Tua or anybody else, but logic would dictate it's one of or both of those parties. Rushing a play before the 2-minute warning against Baltimore is probably the worst situational football play of the season for the Dolphins. For what reason are you trying to steal another snap? You're in plus territory with 2 minutes left. You're down 8 points. Take the free timeout, go into the 2-minute warning, and come out with a strategy instead of frantically running everybody up with 5 seconds left and snapping a ball. For what reason? You're already on fringe scoring territory. You want to score faster so that Baltimore can have time to get a counterpunch even if you do score? It just didn't make very much sense to and of course, hindsight's 2020, and maybe if they don't throw an interception on that play, you come out the other side of it and you really don't feel so impassioned about it. But for me, what's the urgency in that moment? If you're going to be a shift motion offense, be a shift motion offense and let this stuff happen. And instead of trying to be some unnecessarily urgent approach to the 2-minute warning for no reason. I guess they felt like they had trapped Baltimore in personnel that they liked. I don't know. But late season football is not about the fast break, right? It's like basketball. Everybody loves the fast break. Was it the D'Antoni Suns? I always get all the college basketball coaches and NBA coaches mixed up. But that Suns team with like Amari Stoudemire, right? They always ran the court and they ran up and down. And it makes for great football or great basketball until you get to the postseason and you got to play defense and rebound and play in the half court game. It's the same kind of stylistic adjustment that happens in football. And I do think they're capable of doing it, but they have to embrace it. And I know there's a lot of impassioned ideas right now about Mike McDaniel and his maturity as a head coach and Tua and all that. And like, please take a step back if you want to dismiss anybody that's a part of what this season has been from their position. I've seen fire Mike McDaniel. I've seen fire Vic Fangio. I've seen, draft a quarterback, don't sign Tua. Like, I don't know. This team needs like 20 points to score 500 points in a season. It's happened once in franchise history before. This team set a franchise record for sacks and up until Baltimore. And look, they pressed against Baltimore. The game script got a little wonky, and I do want to know when that's going to stop happening. When are you going to have a script against a good team that gets a little off schedule, and instead of everybody trying to freelance and make stuff happen, because that's what happened the first Buffalo game. That's what happened against Philadelphia. It's what happened against Kansas City. And it's what happened the last 3 minutes defensively against Tennessee. Mike McDaniel pointed it out on Hard Knocks. And then it's what happened again against Baltimore. Like, okay, you're down 8 points. Go down, get points, get a stop coming out of the half, make some adjustments, and play the game. It said, oh, now we got to go fast. We're going to throw a pick. Oh, now I'm going to try and undercut this play and give up a ton of yards after catch, or my eyes are going to be in the wrong spot because I'm trying to hunt an interception, and I'm going to give a free runner that's running down the field for an explosive play and a touchdown. Like, at some point, that comes from everyone, the players and the coaches alike. But that mentality, it has to change. It has to change. So stylistically and then game script-wise, I think there's some adjustments and some lessons the Dolphins can take from what just happened. The discouraging thing is it keeps happening. But you have to take the lessons from that and apply it moving forward. Otherwise, the The next 2 games at minimum that you have on your schedule aren't going to be maximized opportunities for you as a football team. We're going to talk more about the Dolphins and their adjustments, most notably on the offensive side of the football, on Second and Goal coming up next year on Locked On Dolphins. Stick with us. The regular season is just about done. It's wrapping up, but that doesn't mean there isn't still a ton of great opportunities for you to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. The app is super easy to use. There's a lot of different ways to bet, like same-game parlays. You can find bets in the Explore tab, make a parlay in the Parlay Hub, which is the best way to find popular parlays, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make your first bet a layup with FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Second and goal here, on Locked On Dolphins. And we're shifting focus to the offensive side of the ball and some personnel adjustments I think the Dolphins can make and can continue to make if the injury bug allows it to happen, and what that magnitude means for how Miami can find at least one win over these next 2 football games. Getting a couple of players back offensively feels like a more realistic proposition than defensively. Now, what we do know from a injury perspective is Jerome Baker, and I know this isn't an offensive player, but the Dolphins have 1 IR to return spot available, and it sounds like it's going to Jerome Baker this week. So the visions of Sugar Plums and Isaiah Wynn coming back that some people have held on to, it sounds like that dream has sailed. It's done. And kind of, I know Omar Kelly has alluded to a couple times. I'm not sure what extra intel that's not reported that he may or may not have, but he's been pretty emphatic that it's not possible. So when you kind of hear how McDaniels talked about it, and then you hear some on the beat who refer to emphatically it's way off, it's so unlikely, just don't hold your breath, kind of makes you feel like if the Dolphins were to have made a deep postseason run and had numbers available where they didn't have to exhaust, maybe he could have come back late in the postseason. But the Dolphins need players now. They need players now. So your interior offensive line is not going to get a boost from Isaiah Wynn. Now, I do think there's 3 players, obviously, who the Dolphins are missing right now, who can and could make a difference. Raheem Mostert, Jaylen Waddle, and Robert Hunt. And let's be honest, those are all at minimum quality starters for your offense. If you were to find yourself in a position where you return those 3 players, it does move the needle, because the players who they are replacing, Devon Achane has been excellent as a rookie this year. I think there's justification for him continuing to get a sizable workload. So I think that's the one you can offset the best. Case in point, Miami ran the ball really well against Baltimore on the edges, not between the tackles. But Jeff Wilson, if you wanted to say, okay, well, they're going to get 2 backs involved, Jeff Wilson's the other back. I think Jeff Wilson's a quality depth NFL running back, a part of a rotational stable. Raheem Mostert this year has been a quality starter. I mean, that's a significant upgrade. Jaylen Waddle, he's most taking snaps from Cedric Wilson. I think Cedric Wilson is a quality depth option for an NFL wide receiver core as well. I think he's really leveled up his game as far as a blocker this year. Been really physical. He set some really nice blocks, including one early against Baltimore that really stood out to me. So I think Cedric Wilson to Jaylen Waddle, I'd call Waddle a cornerstone. Before he got this latest injury, he was getting 8-9 targets a game. He went up over 1,000 yards. And even if he only runs vertical plane stuff, I'd still love to see the Dolphins find a way to get him on the field. I think if he gets on the field, doesn't sound promising for against Buffalo Week 18, but at least in the playoffs, I think that brings back the spacing opportunities that is one of the core principles of this Dolphins offense. And then Robert Hunt, I think Miami had 154 yards rushing against Baltimore, and I think 14 of them came between the tackles. you got to have some ability to reset the line of scrimmage. And I just like Baltimore's got nose tackles that they're playing over the top of Lee Meikenberg. That's a bad matchup for a guy who's just being a center for the first time in his career. And that matchup really hurts you. I think Rob Jones definitively has taken a step ahead of Lester Cotton in my eyes. And if you ask me what my preferred offensive group was, interior offensive line for the postseason, it would be Rob Jones at left guard, Liam at center, and then Robert Hunt. I cannot understate how much of an upgrade opportunity Robert Hunt versus Lester Cotton would be for the interior offensive line if that's the change that they make. Now, if the coaches make an evaluation decision and they choose to go with Lester Cotton instead of Rob Jones, I don't know what to tell you. I'm just a dude on the outside with a set of eyeballs that could very clearly look and see that Lester Cotton is the player that would come out if I had my call for the interior offensive line with Rob Hunt returns. Now, the good news, if you're looking for good news, is Mike McDaniel kind of teased on Monday that he's somewhat optimistic we'll see Robert Hunt continue to get ramped up. And he was on the injury report as doubtful and never really in question that it was going to materialize for him against Baltimore. And he certainly wouldn't have made the difference to help you win the Baltimore game. But he is, at this stage, at worst, Miami's third best offensive lineman. And he's played 45% of the snaps. Well, when we get done the season and we look through this, we comb through the snap count, we see that Connor Williams has taken 45% of the snaps this season, and Robert Hunt's played 45% of the snaps this season, and Teron Armstead's played 45% of the snaps this season. It's just, it's exhausting. It is exhausting to go through and look at all of the snaps. And there's a team that you're going to play this week that's had the same starter in all 16 games so far this season. And you could say, well, Teron Armstead, you know what you signed up for, and you're absolutely right. But this wasn't just Teron Armstead. I mean, this was Connor Williams, and this was Robert Hunt. Robert Hunt, make sure I get the numbers right here because I don't want to misspeak. Robert Hunt played in every game this season, or before this season, he played in every game. He played 100% of the snaps in each of the last two seasons for the Dolphins, each 17-game seasons. 1,154 snaps in 2021 and 1,056 snaps in 2022. Now, in the games he's played this season, he's played in 77%, but in total Dolphins offensive snaps, that number has been cut down to about 45% of the snaps. Connor Williams, conversely, played in every game in each of the last three seasons. Now, he didn't get 3 starts in Dallas in 2021, but he took 100% of the snaps in 16 games in 2020 in Dallas, 1,146, 949 snaps in 2021 with Dallas. The 1,146 was in 2020, and then 1,057 snaps offensively for Miami started every game. That number down to 497 this year. So just a brutal turn of events. Getting a single starter back in the interior, I think gives you a little bit more juice in all elements, be it pass protection and what you trust him to do, be it in the range in the screen game, be it in vertical movement in the between the tackles game. It would just be a really nice boost to have your right guard, right tackle combo be guys who were intended to be there from the start of the year, because that's about the only combination spot and opportunity you have to get that. How much of a boost, I can't quantify. But if you put all three of those guys back into the lineup, I think you have a chance to find a few more explosive plays within a game, and you're going from 375 to 390 yards of offense, and maybe you're getting 450. And that should correlate to a few extra points along the way. So I think for the offensive side of the ball, from a personnel adjustment, it's about getting these guys that are fringe healthy while acknowledging that Isaiah Wynn's not going to happen. Defensively, you got a whole other set of problems, and that's what we're going to talk about on Third and Goal, which is coming up next here on this episode of Locked on Dolphins, so stick with us. PrizePicks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. They're the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports because it is you against the numbers, not you battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks. You pick more or less on 2 or 6 player stat projections and watch your winnings roll in. If you get all 6 in your PrizePicks stat combo selection, you can win 25 times your money. They have a slew of betting options that include football, basketball, hockey. You name the sport, they have it. You name the stat projection, they probably have it too. You can make selections in just a few taps on your phone, and they accept Apple Pay so that you can make sure you are constantly in the game. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match of up to $100. That is prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Use code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match of up to $100. Third and goal here. Locked On Dolphins. Last push to push this thing into the end zone. We're going to talk about the defense and where this defense can adjust and how they can adjust with a number of players that you probably shouldn't bank on seeing, or you definitely can't bank on seeing, not just for the end of this year, but maybe even for the beginning of next year too. The Bradley Chubb injury, I think, is the most crippling injury that the Dolphins have incurred since Connor Williams, as far as their identity as a front. The good news is you do have Emmanuel Ogbah as a fairly productive player this year relative to his snaps. Well, there's the whole other conversation about the contract, but that's neither here or there for this conversation. Really, just ultimate at the end of the day, Miami has a player who didn't dress against Baltimore who you can plug into that spot in the lineup. But it changes just about everything because of how good of a player Bradley Chubb has been this season. You've already lost Jalen Phillips for the year. Now you lose Bradley Chubb, confirmed ACL tear yesterday with MRI. You also lose Xavien Howard. Now, Mike McDaniel said Xavien Howard is a week-to-week thing, but he's planning on him not playing against the Bills in Week 18. If you're Vic Fangio, I think your core principles of who you want to be, what you've shown that you want to be all season long, you probably need to shake it up a little bit for this football game. I don't think you can just run out here and say, we got a left corner and a right corner, because go pull up the Lamar Jackson passing map from week 17. They went the opposite direction of Ramsey on just about every opportunity they could to pass the ball, and they killed the Dolphins. They killed them. So Jalen Ramsey, when he was first acquired, this is the first thing I would do. Jalen Ramsey, when he was acquired by the Dolphins, we kind of worked through our expectations, and we determined that Jalen Ramsey was going to be an X factor for this defense because of his versatility and his ability to move around. That has not manifested itself. It manifested itself against the Jets, where he mirrored Garrett Wilson, and that was a decision that was made apparently in the pregame because you did not have Xavien Howard 90 minutes before the game when it was decided. Y'all got to do the same thing. We can't run out here and say, well, Jalen's going to play on the left, and Eli's going to play on the right, and Cater's going to be in the nickel. And I understand Stephon Diggs has had about as quiet of a month as he's had in the NFL since he came into the NFL. He's not been featured in the offense. But I'd like to keep it that way if possible. I'm not saying put Jalen Ramsey in the nickel. I'm a little disappointed we haven't seen Jalen Ramsey move around a little bit more to maximize his veteran savvy, his versatility, his rare blend of physical tools. He's been outstanding this season. There's no question. But I don't think this is the week that you say, okay, Ramsey, we're going to move you around this week and have you play all over the defense on the back end, at safety, and nickel, at outside corner. Not the way, that ship sailed for this season at least. But what hasn't sailed is the opportunity to match him on the Bills' most explosive, most dynamic player. And Bills fans are going to have a bunch of jokes because Stephon Diggs hit a double move against Jalen Ramsey in the season opener in 2022 and cooked him. I get it. It's the best opportunity that you have to turn the game into 10-on-10 and eliminate that element of the game. And if you could do that, I think it helps your chances. Buffalo's been very involved in the run game as of late, as they've been on this heater and this stretch. Can you turn it into a muddy? They play a lot of 12. They got Kincaid and they got Dawson Knox. Can you get into base and flood gaps? If you get into base and flood gaps, I think you do have a bit of a unique opportunity, assuming Jerome Baker does come back, is the one player that we are banking on coming back out of the losses of Phillips and Chubb and now Howard. Baker coming back, he's moved around quite a bit in his NFL career. He's played as a stand-up player on the edge of the line of scrimmage. Now, I don't think you do that with a ton of frequency, but it's another body that you can get involved into some of those reps if you're comfortable with working through whatever happened with the Dolphins defense and their backside matching against the Ravens, where they really had a beat on Miami's coverage rules and they really abused it, and they got a mismatch with the back on Duke Riley out of the backfield, and they got called for OPI on one of them, but they just had a lot of space, and Duke couldn't quite squeeze that. So I think Jerome Baker's maybe a front seven piece that becomes an intriguing option for you because he has a history of it. Now, you're going to have to bring your big boy pants as far as stopping the run. And I'd expect you maybe see more. I mean, they do a ton of weak safety rotation cover 3 anyway. But I'd like to get Jaylen Holland low this week as much as possible to help you fit in the run game. Obviously, you have 2 good tackling safeties, but Jaylen Holland, I think with his versatility, maybe you're not moving Ramsey. Maybe you can get Jaylen Holland closer to the line of scrimmage a little bit more often and hope that he can facilitate some plays within the 10-yard box if the Bills are going to be run heavy or they're going to be intermediate passing, if you could take away the vertical stuff. And who knows, maybe Josh Allen and the Bills are going to watch the tape of Baltimore and they're going to come out and they're going to try to replicate a lot of what Baltimore did. And if that's the case, then guys got to have their eyes in the right place. They got to communicate better on the back end. And you got to play within the structure. Because I think that's one thing that was apparent is as this game got off the script, guys' eyes weren't in the right place. Guys weren't communicating effectively. 2 guys were taking one. Nobody was taking the other. Too much open grass. It's a really bad look for that to happen week 17. I do think there's more room defensively for them to adjust what they've been versus what they can be with the pieces that they have. I don't think you're going to get a ton of organic pass rush. I don't think Emmanuel Ogbah is really going to give you a lot of juice. I'm hoping he can play well against the run, particularly this week. And if he can, then maybe we set Andrew Van Ginkel loose off the edge. We try to pick our best matchup there and let him play that side. And it's a great opportunity for Andrew Van Ginkel to earn himself some money as an expiring contract, who's now all of a sudden the premier pass rusher for the Dolphins defense. Those 2 boys in the middle are going to have to show up big time too. And there's nothing to that beyond them executing up front. They've been very good for the vast majority of the season. Zach Sealer, Christian Wilkins. That's the identity of the front now. They're going to have to bring it in a big way. So maybe you play a little bit more drop 7 and drop 8. Maybe do some more country zone. I don't have the answers just yet for what I think is best for Buffalo. I got to continue to work through the tape of what the Bills have looked like the last month or so. But some adjustment opportunities ahead for Miami that it's really going to be fascinating to see what they choose to do. So that is where the Dolphins stand. And that is going to do it for this episode of Locked On Dolphins. It is your team every day here on the Locked On Network. I appreciate you guys checking out the show. Fins up, keep it locked in. Right here on Locked On Dolphins, we'll get you ready for the Dolphins AFC East Championship game with Buffalo on Sunday Night Football and the postseason run that is soon to follow after that. See ya.